Eddie Tam is the CEO of Central Asset Investments, and last year this Keystone CAI Global Fund was the best performing multi-strategy fund, rising 48%. It was also voted the best Asia-Pacific hedge fund for 2010. No pressure, Eddie. This is 2011. That was last year. Let's go on to what you see as how you're going to make your fund perform as well as you did last year. Where are you investing? Are you saying buy into these loans, or are you saying stay with gold and cash?
Well, I'm not sure about gold, but I unfortunately am not as optimistic about the rest of the year as the second half of last year. I think the markets will bounce around at the bottom, and basically I think I'm not sure about the next few days, but I think going forward the markets could very well be L-shaped rather than V-shaped, as we saw like after the crash of 2008. In
the US, so it's an L-shaped, just go on the bottom, and then the US is to blame for this. That using the
well, I think
it's the main reason for it.
Yeah. Well, US and Europe, to be honest, and I think the L-shape may very well apply to most global markets for quite an extended period of time. I think the main reason is that this time around, you were mentioning about Jackson Hole and all that. I think it's not going to work. I think this time the markets and the real economy have to take on the chin without too much help from governments. In fact, I think arguably the governments have created a lot of the problems that we saw before. So I think, I think a lot of investors as well as the citizenries of many countries are really revolting against too much government intervention, as we saw even during the debt ceiling debate in the US and going on in Europe right now. So it's really going to be up to the markets to self-adjust, I think, going forward.
Okay, right now I guess fixed income markets are really being so closely watched more than usual, as are the currencies. Barclays says that the 10-year US Treasury is pricing in up to $600 billion of quantitative easing 3. When you say just then that Jackson Hole won't work, are you saying that you're expecting quantitative easing and therefore that's not going to work? Because QE2 didn't work.
Well, in fact, I'm hoping that there won't be a quote-unquote QE3. And I think in case there is one, yeah, I think the effect, especially on the real economy, will not be significant, as we saw in the case of QE1 and QE2. So I think the best solution is not to have a QE3. But, obviously I'm not privy to the thinking of, Chairman Bernanke.
That's what the bond markets are saying is definitely going to happen. You say about the impact on the US, but what about the impact on Asia from QE3? Should it happen? How damaging would it be for inflationary impacts, etc.?
Exactly. I think if there were one, it could be quite damaging. I mean, as we saw just in Hong Kong yesterday, I believe the CPI figures was 7.9%, which is the highest in 16 years. So if we have another round of QE from the US and Hong Kong being pegged to the US dollar, we could experience even a greater surge in inflation. In fact, if that were to continue, it may put pressure on the currency peg, for instance, in Hong Kong, as well as, in different ways on the various Asian currencies and inflation picture.
So you had the best performing fund last year. What are you investing in now? What are you increasing your allocation in? You've just been in Thailand. Of course,
right.
You've got the Sinawat Thaksin speaking now in Japan. His sister Yingluck speaking today in Parliament. Is that being touted as the best investment opportunity after the elections?
I do think the ASEAN countries, including Thailand, the Philippines, and Indonesia, are quite interesting. They have been outperforming marginally, I think, year to date. I think these are some of the few markets which are still up on the year. And I think this trend could hold, marginally outperforming the larger markets such as Hong Kong and Japan. I think they're relatively cheap, but I think, they are also affected by the potential global slowdown. So to be honest, we are not, hurrying into any particular investments. We're studying for the opportunities to get back in the markets, perhaps later in the year or early next year.
Quick question, if I can, on Japan. You had to say you had a short after the earthquake. You haven't returned to your 15% weighting.
Yeah, I think last time when I was here, I discussed the fact that unfortunately we had relatively high weighting in Japan before the earthquake, and because of the tragic incidents afterwards, we felt that it was a game changer, and we decreased that to almost nothing. We have been dabbling in and out of it, but right now, quite unrelated to the earthquake and the subsequent radiation incidents, we have a short in the electronics industry. But that's driven mostly by the, I think, weaker Christmas season outlook in the U.S. and Europe, and also because of the polarization, I think, of the tech scene into the Apple camp and Android camp. So basically, everybody else, such as Nintendo and Sony, are being squeezed out of the market. This is how we feel about it.
Eddie, thanks for coming. Eddie Tam, the Chief Executive of Central Asset Investment.